Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar on airlines and travel agents, how NDC is reimagining the relationship. NDC, of course, standing for New Distribution Capability. Now, we've got a great lineup for you. We're going to have a presentation, and then we're going to go to some Q&As from the audience. So let me first off start by thanking Datalex for sponsoring this webinar, and also to everybody out there listening to it, downloading it. Welcome. So we've got a number of elements we're going to cover, but obviously just to give you some background on NDC, which is it's quite a few years old now, actually what it was, and there was a lot of misunderstanding at the beginning. It was seen as a piece of software, perhaps, that people could somehow attach and make everything, wonderful content rich through this NDC patch. It's actually a messaging schema, but I'm going to let our experts talk to you more about that. I'm sure we'll get into it in the Q&As. So just for your awareness, below your screen, you'll see an Ask a Question tab, and you can type in your questions there. They'll come up. We'll get through as many as we can at the end of the webinar, but if we don't worry, they certainly do get passed on to the presenters, and we'll answer the questions as best as we can. Any technical issues as well, you can put there, and we'll try and resolve those for you. So without any further ado, let me first introduce Maria. Now, Maria is one of the, Maria Gray, who's the Senior Product Manager for NDC at Datalex. And Maria, I will hand over to you now for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. Thanks for that introduction. Let me just start the presentation. So, airlines and travel agents, how NDC is reimagining the relationship. When we sat down to think about this topic, we actually looked to the past. Historically, airlines have always been technology innovators. In the 70s and 80s, airlines practically invented e-commerce. GDSs were born out of airlines, and they worked to distribute the fares to the travel agents. Those relationships evolved, and then we come to the late 90s, the dawn of the internet. Airlines led the way in internet e-commerce, with their airline.com websites offering direct-to-market offers. These were driven largely by low-cost carriers. They unbundled the offering and commoditized the flight. They were very much focusing on the cheapest fare. And now we feel we're in a third wave of evolution. NDC is enabling a closer relationship between airlines and travel agencies, a symbiotic relationship. NDC is much more than an API. It's a language that we can all speak to understand each other and work together. It's about partnerships. And that symbiotic relationship between airlines and travel agencies is what we want to explore today. So first, let's look at a few trends that we're seeing now currently with NDC. The first is definitely a ramp up in NDC investment to generate growth. Airlines are emerging from cost-saving exercises. NDC is presenting a real opportunity to grow that indirect traffic. Investment and research projects around NDC that were put on hold for the past 2 years are now being restarted. And airlines that were not previously in the NDC space are looking to enter it. We've seen a rise in the RFPs and the RFIs seeking NDC solutions to drive the business strategy of the airline. Previously, our discussions with airlines were very much technical discussions with their IT department, but now the business is talking to us to see how they can use NDC strategically. NDC has been seen as a tool to generate revenue. This is definitely supported by IATA's move away from the NDC registry and moving towards the Airline Retailing Maturity Index. It's less about how many messages you have implemented, which is very much a technical metric, and much more focused on how you're using NDC to generate revenue in the business. For example, IATA has 26 messages that fall under the shopping capability. If implementing just a handful of these messages showcases your unique offers, we'll then invest in those. Don't be distracted by implementing the remainder of the shopping messages for capability that you won't use or that isn't aligned to your strategy. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. The second trend we are seeing is a movement towards distribution freedom. Airlines are making the leap by proposing new incentivization schemes to agencies and steering them towards the content that's available on the NDC channel. This has given dues to innovative agents who are using the preferential content to their advancement and driving greater bookings, not just for themselves, but also for the airlines. It's a win-win. It's less about a stick approach and closing down channels and much more about a carrot and giving options to agents to choose which channel they want to use. And the third trend that we are seeing is that legacy systems were not built for flexibility. The onslaught of cancellations and travel disruptions has shown an unprecedented world where these systems were not built to account for the level of complexity that is happening. Today's digital savvy shoppers are looking for better solutions and simpler workflows for when their flights are disrupted. If you're going to give me a voucher, I need to know that I can spend it easily. If I have to change my flight, how easily can I do that? What's the workflow? Is it one click? Is it two click? If I've booked ancillaries in the past, are they going to be moved to my newly changed flight? So airlines are increasingly searching for software tools that enable consistent capabilities and offerings for both the direct and indirect channels. If I look back historically, when airlines made the leap to their airline.com websites, they made great strides in expanding the ancillary offerings they had for consumers, not just for flight-related items, but for ancillaries related to the trip as a whole, like FastPass security access or onward ground transportation, anything to better improve your overall journey and experience with the airline. But these offerings were not easily available to the indirect channel, and the agencies either lost the customer to the airline.com channel or the customer just didn't get them and they didn't get that experience from the airline. There is nothing like a crisis to generate innovation, and airlines have recently improved their ability to adjust flight schedules based on the opening and closing of borders, and this sees them enter new markets even for a short period of time. So when you have a tool or a platform that allows the flexibility in making these offers, you can decide on what offers to show and what content and make them unique for that given channel. So these numbers should be familiar to everyone on the call here today. If you don't know them, get to know them, because this is your business case for implementing NDC. The McKinsey report in 2019 said that the industry has the potential to realise up to 40 billion in new value annually by 2030, and they highlighted 3 key areas to achieve this: NDC, streamlining orders through an order management system, and dynamic offers. So to achieve this uplift of $7 per passenger, as an airline, you need to be as good a retailer on your indirect channel as you've become on your direct channel. You need to compete with other airlines for this wallet share through differentiated content. And you need to build up your indirect channel of distribution by partnering with sellers and travel agencies, getting them onboarded easily to start selling your differentiated content. Last year, we had the BCG and IATA report, which suggests there's a 50% reduction in distribution costs for some airlines. This is related back to the distribution freedom trend I spoke about earlier, incentivizing agencies to use the lower cost indirect channel and incentivizing them with unique offers. So now we want to look at this reimagined relationship. How does it give control for the airline and access for the agent? We see the relationship between the airline and the agency as deeply intertwined. It's not a power struggle where one party has more power than the other. When it's working well, it's a synergistic partnership. In fact, the airlines I work with call their direct connect travel agencies and aggregators their partners. These are the first movers who want access to their NDC content. So for the airline, they have control over the content they are putting out through their NDC channel. They also have control over who can access the channel. So they're authenticating sellers, they're identifying who's coming in through this channel, and using that information, they can determine the unique offers they will give to the agencies. For the agencies, they have greater access to unique fares and offers, so it feels they're getting content that's on a par with the .com websites. In fact, they could even be getting their own targeted offers specifically for them. Also, when you have a fully functioning NDC channel, it gives more autonomy to the agency. So they are not just creating the orders, they are servicing them too. Right up until check-in, they can add ancillaries, bags, seats, add emergency contact information, visa, passport. Everything they could do through their old legacy channels, they can do through the NDC API. This gives them the autonomy to control the order. So really, how is Datalex helping this partnership? We know it's the technology that has this advancement. We're one of the leading providers of 21.3 NDC schema, and we're also going to go live with this with an airline customer in Q1 of 2023. This 21.3 schema leapfrogs all intermediate versions, bringing full offer and order servicing capabilities, all in a version where sellers and airlines can speak to each other. If I look back, IATA's announcement about the 21.3 schema, that it was a conversions version, was a really good signpost to the industry. Lots of IT providers and airlines had circled around the 17.2 schema. This had great shop and book capabilities. Then we had 18.1 and 2, 19.1 and 2. These versions came and brought more order servicing and order change capability, but the masses didn't adopt these. So it's really important that we all work together. Secondly, having a unified merchandising platform for your direct and indirect channels gives the airline speed to market for their offers. So if an airline is entering a new market and they want to bring on a new fare offering specific to that market, it's very simple. Let's say we have a long-haul leisure market to a premium island destination. Premium seats might be very important to those customers traveling on the long-haul flight. If you roll out a new fare offering on your airline.com, bundling premium seats, that's fantastic. But your travel agency customers want access to this too. And using NDC, you can roll out this offering to both distribution channels. Similarly, you might have a travel management company working with a corporate. We have lots of tech companies here in Dublin: Google, Meta, Twitter, Stripe, just to name a few. If I'm an employee working for Google, I might be traveling back and forth between Dublin and San Francisco quite frequently. It would be great if I could get a unique offer just for me. So I log on to the travel management tool for my company with my employee ID. This information is passed to the airline. So the airline not only knows which travel management company I'm coming through, they also have my employee ID, so they can tell that I come from Google. And using these pieces of information, they can respond with a unique fare bundle just for me, perhaps premium seats on the long-haul flight, or fast track through security. They can get really smart with this information and make unique offers. And then finally, as an airline, how do you make your offers stand out among all the other offers that are on the market? And this is where we get into the world of dynamic offers. Datalex today has been certified on the IATA ARMI index in these capabilities. And I'm going to come back at the end and explain a little bit more about how they can help drive your advancement. So next, I want to look at the seller advantage for using NDC. How can this really help travel agencies? At the heart of the relationship is the customer. So the airline and the agency are working together to serve the needs of the customer. Today, an airline probably has hundreds of data points on customers shopping on its airline.com website. But you can be sure a travel agent knows its local customers better than anyone. They know what their propensity to spend is, how far in advance they book, and what's important to them when they travel. Extending on that relationship, we also have a closer relationship between the airline and the agency to collaborate on selling. So if the travel agency knows in their local market it would really help to have a more flexible fare or a very specific bundled offer, they can approach the airline and work together to develop this offering. So all of this is bringing modern retailing into the travel agency world. Today, customers expect online travel agency websites to be fully featured and consistent as their other shopping experiences online, whether that's shopping for books, gifts, clothing websites. They have the expectation of comparing offers, of filtering offers, of seeing what promotions are available on any given day. We know this is difficult as IT providers with the legacy airline technology, but customers born in the digital age don't care about this. They have high technology expectations. If we talk about these targeted incentives, it's very much about the carrot approach I spoke about earlier. These incentives are fares and bundles that are available on this NDC channel that the agency can take advantage of. Similarly, preferential access to content. So when the airline knows who the seller is, they can target that content specific for that travel agency. And also, the agents are now getting access to the richer product catalogs and ancillary offers that are available. They're not limited by the legacy technology that previously existed. So finally, I'd like to bring it around to where NDC is going. I touched on this earlier. At the moment, we know we're limited by kind of 26 booking classes with the technology we have today. We can offer limited discounts and markups, predefined price points that already exist. That's today's opportunity. But we're working much more towards a dynamic price determination. So really contextualized recommendations. When I know who you are and what you're shopping for, are you a business traveler, a leisure traveler? Is there a family traveling? I can use all of this information to generate, using business rules, to generate real-time pricing recommendations. That's the incremental opportunity. And then we're working towards continuous pricing. So this is AI-powered technology, retailing and pricing in the travel agency world. So infinite price points, contextual recommendations because we know who you are, and that brings us to the future where there's exponential opportunity. So I said this is where NDC is going. We at Datalex would say actually this is available today. It's not just available on your direct channels. You can get this through your indirect channels on our NDC API. So that brings me really to the end of our journey through the symbiotic relationship of the airline and the travel agency. They need to coexist to thrive in this modern retailing world. I hope I've given you something to think about today.
Maria, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so you've heard an awful lot about NDC there, and I hope that's given you a great overview of the technical and indeed all the other challenges associated with it, and the potential, more importantly, of what NDC can do. Now, hopefully, with the wonders of technology, we're going to see a pop-up appear on screen, and that will give you a link to download a PDF, which will contain, I'm sure, all the information you need, and certainly all the contacts and everything that you might want. So with a bit of luck, you're seeing that, and you can click on the link. If you can't, don't worry, because what will happen on the resources tab, you've got a resources tab, I think it's on your top right screen. Any point, you can go to that resources tab, and the link will appear there, and you can just click on that and download the PDF, and hopefully that will contain an awful lot of the questions you have, but not all of them, I hope, because I hope you're going to ask us a few. And for that, you've got a tab beneath the main screen, Ask a Question. Just click on there, type it in, and through the magic of technology, we will see that, and we'll try and get to as many questions as we can towards the end of the webinar. But certainly, you know, like, as I said before, we'll pass those on to the presenters anyway, so hopefully they'll be in touch to answer any particular questions you have. You will see, hopefully, as well now, we're joined by Brian Porter, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Datalex. So he's going to help us go through some of the questions and indeed some of the issues around NDC. So Brian, I will start with you to come to you while we're talking about it. NDC has been around for a few years. It's always been a very technical discussion about schemas, and we'll come on to that soon. But for the end customer, what does NDC mean? If I'm just looking to buy my ticket on an airline and I'm sitting at home now thinking, you know, gosh, it's awful weather outside, I really fancy a week in the sun. What does NDC mean to me? What will I see that's different when I go to my high street travel agent?
Yes, hi Graham, and thank you for having me. Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that, you know, you made the point that, you know, really NDC is just a standard, right? It's, we see it really as an enabler, right? So from the Datalex perspective, the customer is, or the end customer, as you put it, is really the big winner in this. And the reason for that is the standards of NDC as an enabler really allow the customer to benefit from differentiated offers created by the airline. In terms of the examples that Maria put forward, there's also the capability for the airline through the agency to actually personalize or customize an offer, either for a specific segment or cohort of customers, or for an end customer based on actual customer identifiers. What we're seeing as well is that NDC is allowing airlines to distribute a greater choice of ancillaries and ancillary bundles to the end customer, which really means that the end customer is benefiting from a much greater value proposition and a lot more choice in terms of what the airlines are offering. I think as well, from the end customer perspective, you mentioned the high street travel agent. I think a lot of the choices that are made today are based on price, through forced commoditization, through the distribution capabilities or the legacy distribution capabilities that the airlines have been left with. But in terms of NDC, what it allows the high street travel agent to ultimately do is provide a comparison of different fares and different products and different offers to the customer that are about more than just price. We can take a look at the seat, the pitch, the ancillaries that are included, what the actual traveler journey is going to be like through the airport, what additional ancillaries are going to be offered to the customer, and really the customer becomes the big winner in this. The other thing for me, Graham, is really what NDC is enabling is a consistency of experience. I think Maria mentioned that airlines have been very good at innovating in terms of the offers that they're able to construct for the end traveler in their own .com environments. NDC really allows that to be distributed through any channel. So really, it allows the end customer to benefit from the same level of innovation that airlines are employing in the direct channels.
Great, thank you, Brian. I mean, when Maria, let me come to you. When we talk about this consistency of experience, and you were talking about all the different schemas involved. Now, I think first off, perhaps you like to just go through what a schema is. There might be some travel agents listening, commercial people for whom the word schema is not an ordinary, everyday word that they're familiar with. And you also mentioned, so many different versions of it. I believe the situation was that we were updating every 6 months or so. We were coming up with the upgrade. That's no longer going to be the case, as I understand it. But perhaps you can sort of give us a layman's idea of exactly what's going on behind the scenes.
Sure, Graham. I'll do my best. Sometimes I do get a bit technical. That's my background. So if we talk about a schema, what we're talking about is a predefined standard. So an agreed set of messages make up a schema. The IATA convention was to name these schemas in the year that they were released. So that's why we got 17 was 2017. And as you said, they release them twice a year, .1 and .2. So that's how we get 17.1, 17.2, 18.1, 18.2. As I said, NDC was in its infancy, and I mean, we have schema versions that go back to 15, 16. But the 17.2 version had a real convergence around it. It kind of was the first milestone that had shopping and booking capabilities consistently. And as you said, IATA releases new versions of the schemas about every 6 months or so. That's how they used to do it. They've now actually moved to 4 times a year, which is quite frequent. But what they have said is that the 21.3 schema is kind of a baseline or a milestone version that they're looking for the industry to converge around again. So to make that leap forward from basic shopping and booking that we had kind of around 17.2 and to bring it forward into 21.3, we don't need to implement the schemas in between. You can just jump straight forward to 21.3 and get all that full offer and order management and order servicing capability available. And the big thing is when we're all using the same version, it makes those interactions easier, those integrations easier. We're all speaking the same language. That's how I like to think about it. It's a language that we're all talking to each other.
Graham, perhaps you could add to that. I mean, Maria makes some excellent points, and I think that what we've seen over the last couple of years is a lot of early adopters really kind of driving NDC and making a lot of noise in the market. And I think that IATA's innovations, such as the NDC leaderboard, did a lot to effectively drive that. But I think that what we're seeing with version 21.3 now, and to Maria's point, in terms of it being a convergence version, is an absolute maturation of NDC. So we're reaching a point now where we're effectively moving into a more industrialized version of the standard that really enables airlines to enable a lot of capability in terms of what they're offering. And I think that airlines that are coming on board now with 21.3 really have the advantage in terms of leapfrogging previous versions and learning a lot from the school fees that were paid by the early adopters.
So, I mean, coming on to that then, Brian, I mean, if you're talking about the sort of the industrialization of NDC, what's a good idea? How should an airline now sort of strategize around NDC? Now we've got that baseline, that 21.3. What's the best way forward?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things that an airline needs to bear in mind. And at Datalex, these are the types of conversations that we're having with a lot of our customers and the airlines that we're engaging with. But Graham, I think the first one is the airline needs to think how they're effectively implementing. And for us, that means it's more than just an IT implementation of a new standard. Really what this is the airline moving to a next generation of retailing capability. And that means that this is a digital transformation exercise rather than just an IT implementation. And, and in terms of what that means is effectively this needs executive sponsorship that comes from the C-level. It's not a divisional initiative. It's something that is wide-reaching and touches multiple parts of the organization, and it needs to be seen as a transformation. So that's just the implementation of the overall digital transformation strategy. Once the airline's actually enabled, I think the strategy then moves towards seller onboarding. And really, this is not something that needs to be added on to the airline's existing operations, but rather it's something that the airline will need to put at the heart of their distribution strategy. So what that means is that the sales operation needs to be skilled up, and the airline effectively then must follow the opportunities in terms of building out their own seller onboarding strategy, taking into account the complexities and the opportunities in terms of volume. So we're seeing a lot of airlines effectively starting out talking to the meta-search players and the OTAs, where there's a lot of ease of use in terms of commonality, in terms of getting the shopping and booking technology enabled, and then moving out into leisure agencies and doing this through aggregator partnerships, and for the large leisure agencies, direct connects, and then ultimately moving into the GDSs as aggregators. And as the level of complexity deepens and the duty of care aspect is brought through, effectively extending that to the TMCs. I think from a commercial perspective, the way that we're seeing airlines effectively embrace this as an opportunity in terms of how they're articulating the business case internally, there's a twofold approach. The first is a clear opportunity for a cost saving. So the cost saving basically means utilizing more modern technologies and effectively enabling a cheaper distribution channel than the GDS. Then on the other side of that, there's the revenue generating opportunity. So we see a lot of airlines effectively identifying revenue generation opportunities through surcharges in non-NDC channels by enabling NDC. And then we're seeing airlines get more and more innovative in terms of how they're focusing on targeting incentives to agencies to find very innovative ways on garnering market share. And then we see airlines effectively moving out of full content and focusing on content differentiation in their NDC channels. So this could be introducing new ancillaries, focusing on bundles, introducing continuous pricing, but really taking a look at moving from just a cost-saving argument to a revenue maximization argument.
Perfect. Maria, I mean, Brian there talked about that transformative aspect of it, and these days, we're often talking about airline retailing, which NDC, as Brian I think said earlier, was an enabler for this kind of opportunity. Who in an airline should be responsible, for this? It seems to me that it's going to cut across departments. We're talking about distribution, we're talking about sales. Traditionally in airlines, these have been separate departments and never the twain shall meet kind of thing. But what the airlines now need to do behind the scenes in terms of just the personnel, who's responsible, what are the reporting lines?
Yeah, for me, it's really important that they put a focus on this if they want their NDC and direct channel to be successful. There needs to be an owner for these partnerships that they're going to make. I believe they probably have these partnerships in the business at the moment. They're just not closely managed. And it's about having a real partnership with those travel agencies so you can hear their problems, listen to them, and react and respond. So for me, it is a role. It's an actual partner manager, strategic partner manager role within the airline. We didn't have ancillary revenue managers in the past, and then kind of as we put a focus on kind of ancillaries and unbundling fares, that was a new role that was in place. And for me, this is a new role within the airline to really focus on those partnerships so they can manage them and make the best of them.
Perfect, thank you, Maria. Brian, I'll come back to you. We talked a lot, about how this is going to affect, travel agents. You go into a travel agent, this is what you see, this is what NDC enables. Obviously, airlines have multiple channels. So how do you ensure the same offer, from an airline point of view, the same offer goes out across your direct channels as well as your indirect ones? So how do you integrate everything?
Excellent question, Graham. I think at Datalex, this is something that we see as fundamental to a next generation retailing strategy. So the way that we've effectively architected our platform is at the heart of our offer capability is a merchandising solution that really enables us to create offers and distribute them regardless of end channel. So effectively, we can create an offer and distribute it directly to the airlines.com through the Datalex Direct solution. We can effectively make that available through a RESTful API that can be consumed by a third-party retail platform. That might be the airline's mobile app or a kiosk. We effectively can distribute that same offer through the NDC API, through the 21.3 or the other versions that we maintain, which would allow the seller community to effectively present that offer to the user. And that offer would then transform into an order that is effectively maintained and persisted by our order management system. So that's at the heart of what we do. We make sure that the airline has the capability of merchandising and creating an offer and making sure it's available for distribution across multiple channels. Now, in saying that, one of the things that an airline might decide to do is differentiate its content either by channel, point of sale, market, or end seller, or customer to that extent. So the technology that we've built effectively allows the airline to take all of those inputs in terms of identifying channel, market, point of sale, signals from the end customer, and effectively use those in the offer construction that's going back to each of those specific channels.
Perfect, thank you very much. Now, just a reminder to everybody out there that there's a PDF to download. You've got a resource tab, and just click on that, and then you'll be able to click on the link to download the PDF. You can also ask us questions there. That's at the bottom of the screen. Just type in your question. They're all coming through to us now. So we're going to move on. We're going to try to answer some of the questions that are coming in from the audience. We'll get to as many as we can. Maria, I'm going to start off with you. Can you just tell us a bit more about this schema 21.3, and especially the Datalex work that's gone in and around that?
Yeah, we, particularly during COVID, when kind of a lot of projects went on hold, we did continue to invest in our NDC implementation and our NDC solution. As soon as IATA made the announcement of 21.3 being a convergence version, we got straight onto it to make sure we were implementing it. And we have the full suite of shop, order, and payment capabilities available. And we plan to go live with those in Q1 next year with our first airline customer. So we're very ready for that. And you can see our progress as those messages are available. We're getting certified, and that's visible on the ARMI index. It's a great source of information for airlines, there's IT providers and sellers out there. And we're continuing to, as we implement more and more capability, we get it certified with IATA, and it's available, it's visible to everyone who views it. We think it's very important to get that kind of seal of approval from IATA that we're on the right track. And rather than waiting until we had implemented the entire 21.3 schema and then approach it, we chose to get certified piece by piece so that we could see we were on the right track, we were doing everything as expected. And really that culminated in our certification of our dynamic pricing capabilities that we got recently. That was bringing together two products in Datalex, was bringing together our NDC product and our Datalex pricing AI product. Really exciting for us to do a proof of concept in that area. But to be able to demonstrate that capability to IATA and get that seal of approval was very important to us.
Perfect. And actually, it leads on well. So a question we've had coming in, Maria, which I think will be more applicable to you, but Brian, feel free to jump in if necessary. But will NDC also enable the dynamic pricing of inventory?
Yes, that's coming, definitely coming. I think as we are kind of gaining more and more in our experience and our learnings, we've proven now today kind of with this AI technology and the AI algorithms, we're proving them in terms of kind of being able to price. So based on the information that we have, and to see these AI technologies, we do use whatever information is available, be it from the direct channel or the indirect channel, so those models can learn. But bringing on to that, we will be expanding that into the inventory controlled ancillaries as well. I understand that's really important for airlines to make the best use of all the resources they have. Brian, have you anything to add?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you take a look at the capabilities that we're enabling for our airline partners today, there's a number of airlines that are effectively utilizing our merchandising capability to really dynamically retail ancillaries directly into their direct platform or into their indirect platform. And I think one of the challenges that we often hear from the airlines that are coming to us is, it's a capability that they have with their existing technology, but it has, in terms of the amount of effort involved, it takes an incredibly long time. And we're talking months and months in terms of lead time to effectively try out a new ancillary in the market. And that's, essentially why EasyJet approached us, to effectively utilize our merchandising capability to be able to dynamically create new ancillaries and get them into market very, very quickly. I think that, if we take a look at how those same offers can effectively be dynamically driven across multiple channels, Virgin Australia is partnering with us just for that aspect of being able to launch a new product directly into their direct channel and have consistency across NDC. Maria mentioned that we are doing a lot of work on the AI side. So we're taking a look at how we can effectively use artificial intelligence to help airlines price along the curve. And this is a solution that we've built out and actually been running trials with LATAM on, in terms of actually proving that we can dynamically achieve revenue uplift just by pricing in those gaps between the various RBDs. And I think that as we move forward, we're effectively looking at an end state where it's not just about the fares or the ancillaries, but really utilizing AI and machine learning to ultimately create dynamic offers that combine both the fare and the ancillary packages, taking the inputs that we get and making sure that that's price optimized for the end customer. And that's something that we're actively working on today.
That's great. Brian, I'll stay with you there. I mean, you mentioned, all the fares, the ancillaries. Speaking from a customer point of view, what normally happens is you're dealing with any number of entities that might be providing those services. Now, one of the other initiatives that IATA have is one order. So how does NDC sort of fit into that broader one order objective? So from a customer point of view, that initial question I think I asked you, from that customer point of view, how is everything going to work together?
Well, I think if we take a look at the relationship between NDC and one order, Graham, for me, it's really about completing the customer life cycle. So what we're effectively doing in terms of the offer optimization that we're enabling across multiple channels through NDC and what we've been talking about in terms of dynamic offers, etc., is really we're taking a look at the front end, right? And what we can effectively enable that that customer to consume in terms of the offers that we're creating. But each of those offers, once fulfilled, ultimately have to become an order. And that order stays alive throughout the traveler's journey and often beyond. So in those instances, we are effectively taking the capabilities that we're enabling on the front end and making sure that we effectively have a modern retailing solution that can ultimately fulfill on those properly. And I think that if you take a look at what One Order is ultimately providing, is it's taking a look at how vendors like ourselves at Datalex can effectively extend the offer management capability that we have in our offer management system today to effectively persist across the customer's entire experience. So that means that that offer effectively stays alive and can adapt based on additional ancillaries or offers that we might add or give to the consumer during that overall experience, making sure that at every single touch point that the airline or the airport or third parties have with that customer, that the right level of customer experience can be given. So the whole concept of One Order and its fulfillment through an order management system really makes sure that from generating the original offer, then throughout the customer's entire journey, all the way through to fulfillment and order accounting and all the back-end processes, that we have a consistent, clean experience, and we're focusing on what we can do to surprise and delight the customer throughout that entire journey.
Now, Maria, a question coming up for you. We're talking about how this is all going to change, how the indirect channel, is going to change through NDC. Traditionally, what's happened, of course, is there's been a middleman, effectively, the global distribution system, a GDS, and there are a number of them throughout the world. You also talked in your presentation, of course, about that intertwining relationship. So where does the GDS sit in all this? What role can they now play when we're talking about NDC?
Yeah, great question. The GDSs have so much experience, and they're going to bring that into the NDC world as well. When I speak about sellers and partners, I'm very much talking about aggregators as well, with the GDSs in that role of bringing that content to market with their customers. And I think they're as excited to move forward and use this technology as well. It just makes sense. Brian reminded me yesterday about how GDSs originally came from airlines. Sometimes we forget that. We've all been in this business so long, we kind of forget the history, and it's no harm to look back every so often. But I do think they're definitely they're keen to participate. They've spoken to some airlines that we work with, and they've spoken to us as well in terms of consuming that NDC content that we're offering for airlines. Yes.
Perfect. And again, Brian, I'm going to come to you next about a question about volume. But just before I do, just a reminder that in the resources tab, you've got a link there. You can download PDF. You can ask a question at the bottom of the screen, where we've got another 5 or 10 minutes or so. We'll get through as many as we can. So, Brian, I'm going to come to you. We've had some sort of questions about just the sheer volume that NDC queries might put on systems. How do we handle volume in NDC?
So I think that what we're talking about there, Graham, is, I think one of the things that's been quite highly publicized is the anticipation of very high look-to-book ratios in the NDC environment. And I think that one of the drivers behind this is, I think for a lot of airlines, in terms of enabling the early channels, are focusing largely on the meta search engines and the OTAs, who historically have had very, very high volumes thrown at even the airlines' direct channels. So I think that there's that early expectation of very high look-to-book ratios, which obviously results in a certain high level of throughput that's going through the airline systems. So in terms of the approach that we've taken at Datalex, is all of our NDC connections to the PSS are effectively utilizing the PSS web services connections, as opposed to some of the more legacy EDIFACT connections, which already provides a provides for a higher level of throughput at a cheaper cost to the airlines. One of the other things that we're doing is we're making sure that we're collaborating with the airlines in terms of putting in our own shopping and pricing solution, which can effectively handle that scale at a much more cost-effective price point for the airline. Beyond that, what we're doing is we're effectively working with airlines to actually take a look at the quality of traffic that they're receiving. I think for any airline, there's the evaluation whether the high throughput of robot traffic will actually result in any kind of real value in terms of ultimate conversion. And that's something that we're able to work with our airline partners in terms of effectively throttling. So there are multiple ways that we would effectively deal with that problem, Graham. I think that the other side of the question is where that volume is not necessarily a consideration, but an opportunity. So Maria is actively working with a lot of our airline partners currently in terms of strategizing seller onboarding plans. So we're actively working with the sellers and the aggregators in our market, as well as our customers, to effectively put together a strategic approach in terms of seller onboarding that really focuses on where the biggest opportunities lie and how the airlines can effectively work with their biggest partners today in terms of making sure that those partners continue to see the fruits of NDC.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. And following on from that, actually, a question there. You're saying airlines need to work with their partners. So we have a question about interline and multi-airline journeys and so forth. So I'm not quite sure which one of you might be most applied. Maria, we'll go to you first, and then Brian, feel free to jump in afterwards. So, yeah, how does the NDC work with multi-airline journeys?
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited to start doing a proof of concept with some of our airlines and their partners to try and deliver those multi-airline journeys where we're really gathering offers from different sources. I mean, to us, it doesn't matter where the sources are, but yes, it's really exciting if we can partner with an airline and get their airline content and deliver it in partnership based on those existing agreements that are in place today for those airlines where they already have partnerships in place, just because it helps that downstream accounting process and settlement that needs to happen.
Yeah, Graham, this is something that we've spoken about a lot at Datalex. I think, when we take a look at the challenge of NDC interline, for us, it's not really a technical challenge. I think that that's something that's easily surmountable. But really where the challenge lies is in terms of working with an airline partner, in terms of all of the processes that are effectively established around interline and making sure that those processes are effectively mapped over into an NDC world, both for the participating offer airline as well as the offer responsible airline. So in terms of the approach that we're taking, we're talking actively with a couple of airlines within our portfolio. We're very lucky to have airlines participating in large groups as well as alliances. And we're looking to effectively partner with a pair of airlines in terms of putting together a proof of concept for NDC interline and effectively working with them to solve a lot of these process issues that effectively will make NDC interline something that is fully scalable in the market.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, we've got time just for a couple more questions where we'll get through. Again, for everybody watching, please feel free. You can still ask the questions. We will answer them afterwards. They'll be passed on to presenters who will be happy to come back to you and answer any of your questions. You also have a PDF you can download through the resources tab there. So last couple of questions. Again, Brian, I'll come back to you, but Maria, feel free to jump in. So what types of sellers does Datalex have?
So currently, Graham, we're working with a number of airlines, and the types of sellers that we're working with include direct connects to leisure travel agencies, as well as aggregators. So we're effectively working with a number of aggregators in the market that we're busy enabling for our NDC customers. One of the aspirations that we have through one of our latest customers is to effectively build a connection to the GDS, or to one of the large GDSs as an aggregator. So that's going to be our first time effectively enabling our airlines content to effectively be distributed to a GDS as an aggregator, which would effectively see the GDS hosting NDC content alongside traditional GDS content in terms of the agency consoles that they're presenting to the agent market. Maria, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add there.
Yeah, I'd love to add, because I meet with these sellers and partners almost daily, and it's really great for me to listen to them. There's a wide range of experience in terms of NDC. Some of them are really experienced in NDC integration, and for some of them it's their first time. So it's really important as an airline and as an IT provider to the airline that we kind of handhold them through that process. But also just hearing their feedback in terms of what workflows are so important to them to get going first. Like, one of the things was, I need 24-hour cancellations. That's the biggest thing for me. If I can't do that through my NDC API, I have to call your call center. So hearing that feedback on the ground and being able to react to it is fantastic. And it's so important. Again, kind of when I think about that role in the airline, they need to manage that relationship, because it's just gold listening to the information that you're hearing from their travel agents and sellers.
I suppose that this is probably also an opportunity for us to have a bit of a plug for IATA, Graham. I think that it's an area where IATA has been particularly strong as an industry body in terms of enabling. I think, Maria's involvement in the implementation forums has been absolutely instrumental in terms of really kind of building that sort of triangular relationship between our airline customers, ourselves as vendors, and the seller community, in terms of really kind of understanding the challenges of NDC, overcoming those challenges in those forums, and really kind of building a three-way conversation between the key stakeholders.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So we have one final question before we wrap up, but I think, we've really gone through that whole journey from the technical side of NDC and the schemas through to that end customer. But perhaps just as a final question for us to wrap up with, what do you feel is unique about the Datalex NDC product, and what do you think the future is for NDC? Brian, I'll start with you, and then we'll let Maria have the final word.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Graham, I've been in the industry a while, and I've worked across the airline as well as the vendor community, and I think within Datalex, the strengths that I perceive are myriad. I think the first for me, I think we touched on earlier, which is the fact that Datalex's solution effectively puts merchandising and retail capability at the heart of the solution, and really enables the airline to have consistency as well as differentiation capability across the channels. So it's really a single retailing platform for direct and indirect distribution. One of the other aspects that Maria touched on was obviously 21.3 and the investment that we've put into the latest version of the API. Not only are we ready to implement it, we are currently in the throes of a go live with a customer on the latest version. So, for us, this is, truly a game changer just in terms of the additional servicing capability that it enables. On top of that, IATA have recently been touting the benefits of the ARMI index, the Airline Retail Maturity Index. And I think from a Datalex perspective, when we've taken a look at it, we really have a solid mapping across the maturity levels across the index that really extends to our offer or our dynamic offer capability. I think as well, in terms of the ultimate promise of NDC, in terms of not just achieving cost savings for airlines that I touched on earlier in terms of, GDS bypass and more modern technology, really there is a retailing and a revenue opportunity that underlies all of this. And I think that our capabilities in terms of being able to allow airlines to dynamically create those offers is really going to set the airlines that move forward with Datalex apart.
Perfect. Maria? Oh, Maria, sorry, you're on mute at the moment. I think you just need to
my goodness, sorry.
No worries.
We're nearly going to miss my final word. Just in answer to your question, where is NDC going? I think we're definitely going to see the industrialization of NDC. It's no longer just a pipe dream. We're really seeing it's a proven technology. The revenues are coming through it. The airlines are going to see the revenues coming through it. And then just from a Datalex perspective, having the best of breed in terms of an offer determination technology, our pricing AI, having the best of breed in an order management system, bringing those together under the NDC API. We've got a very busy few months ahead of us with several go lives. I think you're going to hear a lot from us. I think we're really going to see NDC being a solid technology to deliver those strategic aims of every airline.
Perfect. Right, with that, I think we're going to end it there. So I want to say thank you to Maria and Brian for their knowledge and their input into this. It was fantastic. Thank you, of course, to Datalex for making it all possible. A quick reminder to the audience, you've got a resources tab. You can click on the link and you'll be able to download the PDF. Any questions that we haven't been able to get to, we will come back to you and answer everything that we can. So I want to say thank you all to listening to this. Thank you to all the team behind the scenes at Workcast and Redactive and at Datalex that have made this possible and made it go very smoothly. Thank you most of all, of course, to everybody listening, watching. With that, I'll say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, everyone.